Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, TGIF. Dom, the announcer, barely even acknowledges your existence here. Welcome to the show.
Hey, man, good to be with you. Crudy, Nate, working hard on the board. Our fair audience, happy Friday to us all.
You know, on Friday, we air the grievances. The audience prepare to participate at 844-967-2789. But I got to tell you, Dom, maybe it's the rapid changing of the weather. It's given me something of a respiratory thing. I think the entire state's got it right now. But I'm a little bit of let's just say, a bitch right now. It's got my mood. It's affected my mood. And as you pointed out before we came on the air, how would I tell the difference, Crudy? Implying that I'm not an otherwise lovable guy each and every day here on the radio with you.
I think sometimes, Crudy, your self-awareness, it ebbs and flows. And perhaps today is one of those where you're on.
Well, I know I got a little bitch in me. Dom, let's start here. And we got some fine guests coming soon, so that's not a grievance. First and foremost, our friend Alan Robinson coming back with the 420 Facts, brought to us by our friends at Herbal Aspects. He'll join us very soon in studio here in Madison. And also Nick Ramos from the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. He's the new executive director, a new friend. We're getting to know him rapidly, Dom, and he will also be in studio here with me in the Solidarity Realty Studios, 92.7 WMDX. So that's all good.
Yes.
But the Chaos Caucus, Dom, they are supported by every Wisconsin Republican congressional member. And they're back in full crazy, man. I thought maybe the chaos was over. I thought maybe we had reached some sort of saneness just for a
we
moment.
have a new speaker, right? Finally coalesced around Mike Johnson. And now they're going to work in unison and perform together. They're going to be the unity party.
Well, one of their first legislative propositions is supported by every Wisconsin Republican. That means you, Brian Stahel, you, Mike Gallagher, you, Glenn Grothman, you, Scotty Fitzgerald, you, Toxic Tom Tiffany, and you, Profane, Derek Van Orden, you, insurrectionist, you. But the Wisconsin House Republicans yesterday helped their party pass the standalone aid package for Israel with an accompanied funding cut to the Internal Revenue Service, a measure doomed in the Senate that sets up a battle over support for Ukraine. So,
hey guys, I got a great idea. Let's throw something against the wall we know is not going to stick, and then we'll just roll with it and see what happens. All right, what do you think?
But what they're throwing against the wall, Dom, this aid package for Israel, and it's a very important time, one would think, to stand with our ally Israel. I'm not supportive of everything they're doing, but I think it's the time to stand with them. So I think it's appropriate that we have an aid package. But B, the funding mechanism effectively is to undercut the Internal Revenue Service so Republican tax cheats like their Cheeto Messiah, Donald Trump, can continue to screw the rest of the American people by not paying what they owe in their taxes. In my understanding, this cut would cost the collected revenues of tax cheats, something like $27 billion a year. To cut this money costs the federal government $27 billion per year. So that's how they intend to fund it, by creating havoc over here. And also, Dom, we don't support Ukraine because Putin Sorry, I can barely keep myself
Yeah, I know,
at the
man.
microphone.
Keep it together, Fruity.
Why? Because they support Putin? We can't stand with the Ukrainians? Like, these are dissimilar things. I mean, I don't often find myself agreeing with Mitch McConnell, but Mitch McConnell sees the value of passing an aid package for both Ukraine and Israel at the same time. Are they not both our allies?
All on the Senate, I believe, has already passed their portion of it. So, of course, they're going to start butting heads with the House Republicans now. And every single one of these Republicans in the state of Wisconsin, they're down for this, even though they know this isn't going to go anywhere.
Dominic, a little bit from the Journal Sentinel's reporting, the proposal supported by every Wisconsin Republican congressional member is dead on arrival. In the Democratic-held Senate, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said he would not bring the package up for a vote, noting it does not include support for Ukraine, humanitarian aid to civilians in Gaza, or assistance to Taiwan in the Indo-Pacific, and President Joe Biden threatened to veto it. Schumer called the clawback of IRS funding a poison pill. The crazy is back, Dom. Have they learned nothing? There's nothing. And the fact that every Wisconsin Republican would support this, I mean, this wasted effort is indicative of the headline over here, Dana Milbank. I want to throw this one out right from the top as well, Dom. Dana Milbank at the Washington Post. The People's House is back in business and crazier than ever, I'd say. A little bit from this piece, Dom. Again, supported by every Wisconsin Republican congressional member. So you thought the election of a new speaker might calm the chaos and the fratricide among the House Republicans? Oh, my sweet summer child.
Oh, that's
I've
so
not
cute.
heard that expression before. That's like, bless your heart.
Bless your heart, child.
This week, Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Dom's girl, 3-0, forced a vote in the House on censuring Rep. Rashida Tlaib. She's a Dem from Michigan on accusations of being anti-Semitic. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene was the one with the Jewish space lasers, Dom. And she's accusing Rashida Tlaib of being anti-Semitic. I guess it takes one to know one. As Dana Milbanks writes, it was funny enough that the Congresswoman's Jewish space lasers herself was accusing somebody else of being anti-Semitic, but her censure resolution was so over the top, it accused Tlaib of leading an insurrection, that 23 Republicans joined all Democrats in tabling it. And after the vote, leading an insurrection. Her words, Dom.
Again, something that perhaps Marjorie Taylor Greene knows a little bit about.
Or maybe her buddy Trump does. After the vote, Rep. Chip Roy, Republican from Texas, said via Twitter that the censure resolution was deeply flawed and made legally and factually unverified claims, including the claim of leading an insurrection. Green shot back on social media. You voted to kick me out of the Freedom Caucus, but keep CNN wannabe Ken Buck and vaping, groping Lauren Boebert, and you voted with the Democrats to protect terrorist Tlaib. That was the quote on the social medias from Marjorie Taylor Greene. To unpack the Green crazy, Rep. Ken Buck has criticized fellow Republicans' plan to impeach President Biden, without any evidence. Rep. Lauren Boebert was kicked out of a Denver performance of the musical Beetlejuice with her date after causing a disturbance that involved Don both vaping and groping. And asked about the accusation from Green, Roy told the Hill's Michael Chanel, tell her to go chase her so-called Jewish space lasers if she wants to spend time on that sort of thing.
Well, she
Green
can't let that lie, though, Crudy. I'll jump in here. Green replied with a new post, because this is what we do in Congress now. Oh, shut up, Colonel Sanders. You're not even from Texas, more like the DMV. Roy, who grew up in Northern Virginia, has a white goatee, and not unlike the whiskers on the chin, the late founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Ladies and gentlemen, writes Dana Milbank from the Washington Post, the People's House is back in business. In the 9 days since Republicans pulled Mike Johnson from the backbenches, the new speaker has presided over a second failed attempt to expel Rep. George Santos, a Republican from New York, the introduction of not one, but two resolutions to censure Tlaib and a resolution to censure Jamal Bowman for pulling a fire alarm during the vote. Johnson managed to turn an area of near unanimous support into a partisan brouhaha by making funds to help Israel defend itself against Hamas contingent on a provision making it easier for the wealthy to cheat on their taxes. I mean, Of course they did, because that's what Republicans do. With just 2 weeks to go until the federal government runs out of funding, Johnson is floating a cockamamie laddered approach that would replace the looming shutdown threat with 12 new shutdown threats.
What a deal.
This is the new leader's idea of a functioning House. Maybe having the House speakerless and inoperative for 22 days wasn't so bad after all. The feuding in the GOP resumed immediately after Johnson's elevation. Ways and Means Committee Chairman Jason Smith publicly blasted Matt Gaetz for causing the crisis by filing a motion to oust Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Gaetz responded by some speculated, insinuating on social media that Smith is gay. Smith called me a liar, Gaetz wrote. It is a somewhat predictable projection because he lives a lie every day. Gaetz declined to elaborate. Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer stepped up his efforts to impeach Joe Biden with the panel's announcement that Joe Biden received $40,000 in laundered China money. Bank records indicate it was actually a repayment of a loan Biden made to his brother when the current president was a private citizen. Comer's wild allegations keep crumbling upon scrutiny, which might explain why he said of his impeachment inquiry, quote, I don't know that I want to hold any more hearings, to be honest with you, unquote. He prefers closed-door depositions, which he can selectively leak to create false impressions. And Buck pointed to his colleague's allergy of facts when he announced this week that he was retiring from Congress. His quote, too many Republican leaders are lying to America, claiming that the 2020 election was stolen, describing January 6th as an unguided tour of the Capitol, and asserting that the ensuing prosecutions are a weaponization of our justice system. Buck said in a video explaining why he was quitting. Of these self-serving lies, he continued, these insidious narratives breed widespread cynicism and erode America's confidence in the rule of law. It is impossible for the Republican Party to confront our problems and offer a course correction for the future while being obsessively fixated on retribution and vengeance for contrived injustices of the past. Contrived. Fuck, man. They're always so articulate and brave when they're walking out the door.
You know, there's more in that piece. I wish we had more time to lay it out for you.
It's crazy, though. I mean, it's crazy. It's a whole new level of crazy.
It makes me a little bitchy, I got to tell you, man. I mean, we air the grievances on Friday. Our next run to find guests won't be amongst them. We got Alan Robinson from Herbal Aspects. We got our friend Nick Ramos from the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. And, of course, we got you as well. Fridays for your grievances, your little bitches, if you know what I'm saying. 844-967-2789. Thank God it's Friday.
Test 1 2, test 1 2, test 1 2. Test 1 2, test 1 2. We're coming back in 10 seconds. Test 1 2, test 1 2. Sounding good?
Hope so.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
Oh, shit. I was supposed to give a
coming back.
When they go low, we get high. The Devil's Advocates.
And we're back from the 420 break. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Make sure you download the super cool Civic Media app. You can find it in your Apple stores, your Google stores. Follow the Devil's Advocate everywhere you go.
Dom, you've always got that short-term memory problem. I'll help you with that.
Thanks, man.
Got a fine guest who's joined me here in the WMDX studios. He's our friend Alan Robinson from the Herbal Aspect. And Alan, you bringing us some 420 facts today?
Oh, man, I've got the news for you. all the time. Today is going to be a little bit more subdued because we're not happy about the Speaker of the House.
Speaker Johnson.
Speaker Johnson.
The head of the crazy caucus.
Yeah, that's going to be correct. So the gentleman is vehemently opposed to cannabis reform in any way. We are talking about even moderate reforms. Well, the 2018 Farm Bill is what companies like mine operate under. Now, we need a continuing resolution in order to make that Farm Bill continue on after the 17th. Is it the 17th of November? I smoke.
Yeah, it's a couple of weeks. It's coming up quick.
So let me understand this if I can. Let me see if I'm following the math here. The Farm Bill that legalized cannabis under federal law,
Yes.
not all cannabis, but certain derived cannabis products, and you sell those things through Herbal Aspect. Am I
Yes.
saying that correctly?
That is correct, yes.
And under state and federal law, what you sell, the cannabis you sell, is legal.
Right.
Unless the federal government fails to extend what is currently contained in the agricultural bill from 2018.
That is right.
That would really upset the apple cart here in the state of Wisconsin, all across the nation, because there's lots of people that have followed you into this industry.
You know, when you say all across the nation, I've got some of the single most unlikely allies in Congress and in the advocacy space for this that you could imagine.
Name names.
Well, no, but I will say, I'll say Kentucky Republicans. Right? Yeah. Those advocacy groups in the bluegrass state, you know, they've got great relationships with the obstructionist party in power in the House. And they've leveraged those relationships for the benefit of rural farmers and local shops like my own to build support for, you know, cannabis reform in Congress. And unfortunately, Speaker Johnson has really held up those efforts.
There have been our friend, Alan Robinson from the Herbal Aspect. They are legal cannabis distributor here in the state of Wisconsin. But my understanding is there are banking regulations that still impact your industry tremendously. And they're not exactly moving towards resolution under this speaker or this Congress.
I don't necessarily have the same banking troubles as legal cannabis does. You know, and as a benefit of the 2018 Farm Bill, you know, I don't have the sort of regulation that legal cannabis has. We're not taxed the same way. We're, you know, things are much more hands off at the federal level, and we really like that. But what we really do need is to have some of those protections that other businesses also benefit from.
You mean like if the FCC stopped operating on November 17th and suddenly none of us were licensed to be radio stations? That would affect my industry, let's say, in a similar fashion.
Yeah, it would suck for you. It would suck for me.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. We got a friend who I perceive to be an expert on the topic of cannabis. He brings his 420 facts on Fridays, sponsored by the Herbal Aspect. His fine shop. You got 3 fine shops in this town.
Yeah,
I was at the one yesterday.
So you were at our flagship location over there on University Avenue. But today I'm going to be going over to Gammon Road. That's where the Build Your Own Blunt Bar is located. It's a great place. We got seltzers. We got all the cannabinoids that you could potentially desire. Every one of them. Legal and illegal cannabis is misleading. It's all derived from the exact same plant. And what we have here just loopholes its way through to your doorstep.
Before I let Dom in, let me, well said, sir. Let me express something. While I've been partaking of the legal and mostly illegal cannabis trade since, let's say, 1983, 84 timeframe, mostly you just smoke what the guy sold you.
Sure.
And, you know, I'm a grown-up now. I got a real job. I can afford to be a little more selective, but I need an education. And if I need an education, I think I speak for a lot that might be listening to my voice. A lot of people do, because, you know, I know it's green. I know they used to sell it in the bag. They lick clothes, but above and beyond that, man, I don't know much about what's in there. And I'd like to change that. So how could I educate myself? How can I be educated as a consumer before I start dropping coin?
Yeah, man, I'd say you can come on by, log on to herbalaspect.com and get yourself a cannabis consultation. It's a $50 value. We're giving them to Devil Radio listeners for free.
Well, I like that price.
Yeah, you just got to use the code Devil Radio at checkout. Schedule yourself a 20-minute consultation, and what we'll do is we'll discern what cannabinoids are going to be right for you. We're going to figure out a good dosage for you. We're going to figure out what way of consumption is going to be best for you to treat.
Yeah, some people want to go to sleep. That's not me. I got jobs to do. I got to work.
Some people have chest colds. They should maybe have an edible. Hey, Alan Robinson, Herbal Aspects. Let me jump in here quickly, if I may. Not so long ago, the Biden administration moved to have HHS ask DEA to reschedule marijuana from a 1 to a 3, something along those lines. And of course, now the legal cannabis that you sell is not even on the schedule. So I just want to get your sense. Do you think that what we define as the federal government defines as illegal cannabis right now should even be scheduled? And how would you rate the Biden administration on this effort?
Yeah, poor. The fact of the matter is, cannabis needs to be descheduled. Rescheduling cannabis at the federal level signals fresh congressional intent. And not to get into a whole bunch of legal mumble jumble, but I just want to basically say that means that the DEA and all the feds could come down and on any state that has legalized cannabis and throw their entire industry into complete upheaval. With rescheduling, what you need to do is completely deschedule cannabis. And then you won't have that problem.
Dom, do you have more questions? Because otherwise, I'd like to selfishly get back to my cannabis education and how I get that free consult down at the Herbal Aspect. Because you went a little too quick for me. Slow down, man. I want to hear that again because I got to take a note here.
Yeah.
How am I going to get the free consultation? Because I want to learn more. I don't want to be an uninformed consumer with a bag full of stems and seeds like I used to get in college.
Yeah. So what you're going to do, right? Right. Starting next week, you'll be able to log on herbalaspect.com and click a button that says cannabis consultations. That will lead you to a scheduling portal. You put in Devil Radio, and there you go.
It's free.
It's free. $50 value.
And
give you 10% off your purchase too once you.
Well, I was going to say I'm not getting educated not to buy something. Now you got to point me in the right direction. So. Yeah. Again, say that deal, because
yeah, man, I'll let you know. So if you, with your consultation, with your first purchase, I'll go ahead and give you a 10% off discount for Devil Radio listeners.
I like that deal.
Yeah.
Free consultation, a deal on my legal cannabis, FDA approved, state approved. This is the good stuff, and it's done right with a site of education by my friend Alan Robinson. Thank you for the 420 facts. Go see him at the Herbal Aspect or schedule your consultation, herbalaspect.com. Our friend Nick Ramos coming in from the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign next.
Thanks, Alan.
All right, let's test some mic levels here real quick.
Check,
Hey,
check,
thanks,
check,
boss man.
check, check,
Check,
check.
check. Check 1, 2. Yo. All right.
Is that your normal speaking voice?
Well, I mean, I used to rap too, man. So, I would definitely treat it a little bit differently, but I'm working on it.
Those levels look good.
Thank you.
Whoop, whoop.
The Devil's Advocates, radio for the 99%.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Friday edition, our favorite. Thank you to our friend Alan Robinson, a fine sponsor from Herbal Aspect. Love when he brings us 420 facts. And Dom, we've got our friend Nick Ramos from the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. We welcome him back, the new executive director. Gonna get all real on campaign finance stuff. Nick, welcome back.
Hey, Crute, man. I'm so happy to be here with you guys, man. I hope you guys have been having fun today.
Let me first and foremost say shout out to Nick's grandma watching on the social medias right now in Ohio.
Aw,
Cleveland.
hey, Grandma. Yeah.
Cleveland by the lake, Cleveland rocks, Grandma. Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. I hope she becomes an everyday listener. But Nick, she's got to be proud, Grandma. You are the new executive director of the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. And for the uninitiated, what do you guys do?
So the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign is a nonprofit statewide organization dedicated to working to make sure that our government is open and transparent and is working for the good of all and not just the narrow few. And so we do a lot of big things. I think the three things that have really been in the forefront right now, it's been redistricting, fair maps work, tracking money in politics and trying to get money out of politics. And so pushing for reform with that. And then generally speaking, pro-democracy reform, we want the most equitable Wisconsin possible here.
Well, Nick, I saw in the wispolitics.com that the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign had expended some of its resources advertising on the so-called civic media. And I'm sure the powers over there that be appreciate you doing so. What sort of messages does the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign put out? Obviously, it's not an election year. Your organization is not in the electioneering business. You're not telling us to vote for someone or vote against someone. So what was the message in case someone missed it?
Yeah. So thankful that we have such extraordinary people here at Civic Media that would even let me come in here and record a radio ad in the first place. But there's a really looming deadline that's coming up here. The Senate's getting ready to come back into session November 7th, and we wanted to get Wisconsinites from every corner of the state in the know as far as what's happening with this redistricting bill, because we are very fearful if the shenanigans continue the same way that they did in the assembly, that they're going to rush to vote on a bill that honestly is not up to snuff as far as experts and people in the pro-democracy space is concerned. And so we wanted people to get the opportunity to reach out to their state senator and to be able to actually have their voice heard on this and try and slow down this redistricting bill that they're trying to jam through and make law in this state.
Well, of course, the Iowa plan, as Robin Voss would describe it, it's more like the Speaker Robin Voss plan, because he would ultimately have say over what the maps would be. My understanding, the threatened impeachment of Janet Protasewicz, the newly impaneled Supreme Court justice. Well, it's been at least put on the back burner for now, and I don't know if it was your efforts or the efforts of the Dem Party or the broader voice of the electorate calling in their leaders and saying, don't do this. And of course, there's the lack of any rationale or reason to impeach Supreme Court Justice Janet Protasewicz. That seemed to be a secondary issue. But if you've noticed, Nick, the Wisconsin Elections Commissioner Administrator, Meagan Wolfe, who has her own legal case before the Wisconsin courts, well, suddenly, under the pressure of his primary opponent, maybe some wackadoos from the Racine area, like Harry Waite. Now suddenly the speaker has advanced impeachment articles against Meagan Wolfe, despite earlier in the day saying, oh, these threats, blew them off, and then bent to their will immediately in the same day. Same Speaker Voss. How concerning is that all it would take to push a impeachment action against Protasewicz is a couple of ads in Speaker Voss's district saying, do it, Voss, or we'll impeach you.
Right. I mean,
or recall or whatever.
Right. No, I'm picking up what you're throwing down. And it's a big, desperate men make desperate plans. It's one of those things that you see literally an ad campaign go out targeting Speaker Voss saying, hey, if you don't do something about this, we're going to vote you out. And then he's now all of a sudden, even though he came out on record and saying it wasn't tied to that, he was planning on something else, but we can all see just what's going on right in front of our faces right now. Like, it's a situation where you're right. I think we saw a Supreme Court shift, and that's why we started to hear the rumblings as far as impeachment. We get to see a little bit of pressure here, and then all of a sudden folds like a house of cards and is throwing impeachment out there for Meagan Wolfe. And it's a really terrifying time because at this moment, who's to say that he can't think about any other kind of scorched earth type tactics if he's starting to get a little bit of pressure? And so we want to keep our foot on the gas pedal and make sure that we are definitely present at any hearings. We're letting people know that we're going to be doing rallies. We're going to be trying to be everywhere to let them know that there's another side to this. And it's not just you get to choose what officials get to stay in office because you feel some type of political pressure. And that just doesn't sound fair to me whatsoever.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. That is Nick Ramos. He's the executive director of the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. Nick, thanks for coming around. Last week, ProPublica released a piece kind of diving into Leonard Leo. His name's been bounced around a lot. Got a lot of money to spend on the political and judicial races specifically, Nick. And they kind of break down how he was involved, during the Walker administration and how they went. Now, this was frankly pretty new news to me, Nick. And I know Wisconsin Democracy Campaign prides yourself in tracking the money. How do you track the money? Where do you get the information from? And how do people go and try to find it from Wisconsin Democracy Campaign?
That's a great question. And so every election cycle, we have a team internally that pulls that data. We pull contributions, and our specific search engine is exclusive to Wisconsin specifically. So we're looking at candidates and races that happen here, but we're looking at the money that gets spent on it, whether it's inside the state or outside the state. And then so we've got, a gentleman by the name of David who his entire life, and I feel really bad because he's pulling all these numbers and he's doing all the coding and like he has to do this constantly. And he's just getting caught up right now, and I've been putting him to work. So David, if you're listening, I'm sorry. But for the general public, you could go on wisdc.org and pull our website up, and it's very user friendly as far as you can go on there, type in a candidate's name. And because of the good work that we have done, grabbing all of those donations and being able to have names and as much information as possible that we can get on these particular donors and showcase the fact of how much money is going in, how often are they donating. And then you get to also see some of the biggest donors. I mean, we've got organizations here that are doing insane amounts of spending on candidates to try and get them to try and get their person to win. And in this particular situation, I mean, we've got out of state money, we've got dark money coming in and influencing races, and people need to be aware of what's happening.
Is that specifically, sorry to interrupt, Nick, but is that Nick Ramos, executive director of Wisconsin Democracy Campaign? We're talking about this Go Impeach Meagan Wolfe campaign in Robin Voss's district. Do we know, was that funded outside the state of Wisconsin? Do we know who is funding? And even this group, it's WEC, which of course is the name of the Wisconsin Elections Commission, the acronym thereof. I think that's purposeful. It very much is there to cloud. Mm-hmm. Do we have any sense of who's funding this?
I think we're going to have more for the general public here next week about this particular campaign, because I was literally in a meeting and somebody sent me the photo. I'm like, okay, Mike.
I speculate Dick Uline's going to come up somewhere.
Oh, I was in a closed door meeting and had and then I was just getting blown up with this ad, and I had my research guy he's looking into it right now. So we're going to have a lot more to share with the public as far as who is funding this particular campaign.
He's Nick Ramos from the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. Nick, we've got some problematic sort of ads that are sort of on the horizon. We're just starting to see AI being incorporated, and the generation of false audio, even potentially false video, although I've not seen that effectively done, but I've certainly heard some audio that sounds very convincing. Hell, they got a new Beatles record dropping with John Lennon's voice through AI. Well, that's one thing for commercial gain, but it's another thing if they don't tell us it's being incorporated. And there's actually a push right now in the state of Wisconsin to push back against the incorporation of AI, or at least make it transparent if it's being used in these ads, because someone could literally put words in your mouth. Is there support for this? Do you think this will move forward in any sort of a bipartisan fashion, Nick?
I definitely think, because we've seen other states and states that, might be traditionally blue or traditionally red, be able to bring AI bills across the finish line. And as far as like my thumb on the pulse with this particular legislature here in Wisconsin, I definitely think there's an appetite on both sides to be able to push an AI bill that would give our legislature the opportunity to be able to see if there's a organization or an individual that is trying to push for AI ads, that it needs to be labeled. It needs to be clearly out there that this is an artificial intelligence ad. And then there's ways that, like, I think the Wisconsin law, if it were to become law, that it's not overreaching in a way that in other states we've seen legislatures shoot it down because they think they're going too far. I think this one is more of just a framework to be able to get in front of it and be able to make sure that the public knows that what's in front of them isn't being generated by a human, and that, and I think that's really important when we see all these deep fakes and we see things that, honestly, in the past, I saw deep fakes and I was like, oh, this is clearly fake. And now we're getting to a point where there could be an ad of you, Crute, literally calling people saying, all types of things, and we might think it's real and it's not even you.
As long as it's sexy,
I'll
take it. I'm like Don Jr. He's Nick Ramos from the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. Nick, I know I'm turning back topically just for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
The impeachment articles being advanced, at least to committee, by Speaker Robin Vos against the Wisconsin Election Commissioner Administrator Meagan Wolfe, according to the reporting I've read, and I have not yet reviewed these articles of impeachment, 15, but according to the reporting I've read, each and every one of these 15 articles of impeachment contain false and misleading information. And this will be propagated widely through impeachment actions here in the state of Wisconsin. What they say will be reported by the press. Well, if we're talking about AI or transparency and who's giving the money, I think getting the truth out there is the most important thing. So what role do you think Wisconsin Democracy Campaign has in informing the public of the misgivings we might have about the false impeachment articles?
It's going to be a joint effort between the Democracy Campaign and the various organizations within the Wisconsin Voting Rights Coalition that we have here in the state, because it takes a village to be able to do that type of education and debunk what will end up being spread across this entire state.
There's plenty of bunk being spread.
Amen. And so I know that we and the Wisconsin Voting Rights Coalition have already had discussions about being able to put forth materials both on social media, doing speaking engagements, trying to get into as many communities as possible to be able to share the actual truth that is with this particular situation. Because you're right, if you read through it, there's tons of misinformation and lies and things in there that, at the surface, a lay person might look at this impeachment thing and be like, oh my God, this Meagan Wolfe's got to go. And it's like, they're building a case out of a lot of blarney is what I would say. And so we're really keeping our eye on this, and we want to make sure that we have an education campaign tailored to it so that people are not confused about what's really going on right now.
And I think ultimately, if we got recast maps here in the state of Wisconsin, I know these Republicans are fighting desperately to retain their gerrymandered power, but if we got fair maps, we might actually get fair representation, and the issue of campaign finance might actually be back in play. Of course, it's buried. We live in the wild west here of campaign finance laws. You can give unlimited totals to the party, and then the party can turn around and give it to any candidate at their designation. Millions of dollars directly given to the party, given to Tony Evers, let's say. I mean, Republicans should not want this to happen, but this is the environment we live in. Nick Ramos, if people want to get involved in your fine work and the work being done by the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, how can they get involved?
You got access to the internet. I suggest you to go to wisdc.org. You can subscribe. You'll get all our e-alerts. You'll get access to all the good stuff that we're doing every single week.
Nick, final thought.
Well,
Those shoes, where did you get those, man? Those are like cheese curds you're wearing on your feet, dude.
I got to tell you, man, people are going to roast me here. Kanye West is a very polarizing figure, and these shoes are Yeezys, and I'm going to burn them once they're dead. So...
Yeezy cheesies. Thank you, Nick Ramos from the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. Appreciate your time. Rest of you, come on back. Dial us up, 844-96-PARTY.
Kicking ass and taking names since the Wisconsin Uprising, the Devil's Advocates.
And we're back. We're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Happy Friday to us all. Airing the grievances, 844-967-2789.
Dominic, want to thank our most recent guest, the fine one, the new executive director of the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, the fashionable-footed Nick Ramos from the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. I swear to God, he had strapped cheese curds with laces on his feet. They looked entirely comfortable, but very much like cheese curds. I took a picture. I'll share it. I'll share it on the Devil's Advocates radio Facebook page because you all want to know about his Yeezys. I can tell. I'm wearing some New Balance.
The NBs.
Just a pair of walking sneaks.
Yeah, get
I'm
some
feeling
style,
kinda-
man. You got to take some lessons from Nick.
Yesterday, I was wearing some Timberlands. That was, or what day was it? I was a lumberjack the other day.
I wore flip flops to the gym.
Put it all together.
Just for the record. Yeah. It was warm enough out, you know. They run in,
The
run
shoe
out.
that prepares you for nothing life could throw at you. Those Yeezys, though. I mean, you could get away at some cheesy Yeezys. You should look into those. Those look quite comfortable. Anyways, politics and shoes. That's what we do here.
Is that what it is?
Advocates Radio Show. 844-967-2789. Dom, before we turn the page here, the specter of AI. Do you think this will be a thing? And I mean, this elective cycle, do you think we will see some breaking news? Trump said this. We've uncovered the tape of Trump, and it's not really Trump. It's AI.
Right.
Or Joe Biden. You know,
Yeah, no, I mean, I think these things are already there, right? They're just not either widely, created and spread around, or when they do, certainly the first thing I would think of is, hey, BS meter. Does that seem logical? Does that seem real? Is that possible? So, obviously, everyone, given the world we live in these days, you got to have a sense of curiosity to maybe look past what you think might be something that may not be that thing. And that's terrible, but it's more of the same. You always got to research and figure it out. Don't just believe the first thing you see or hear. So I don't know that it's again, it's like saying there's going to be, political violence. Yeah. Well, again, you know what I mean? So yeah, this is already kind of a thing.
Do you think there will be bipartisan support to actually try to restrain this sort of effort to mislead the electorate? Because as near as I can tell, man, that's one party's goal right now, is to mislead the electorate. Their whole
right.
theory is it was stolen from the last guy, so you got to put him back.
No, it's a purposeful lie, man. I mean, this is a plan. This is a conspiracy, as we have now seen, as evidenced by court cases and research and yada yada. Look around over the last 3 years. So, will there be effort? Yeah, I think it's a bipartisan effort. Sure, it could impact everybody, but I don't know how you're going to regulate. Someone going to put the resources into doing it and then throwing it on social media and it's spreading. Oh, they didn't put the little tag on the bottom of it. Contains vulgar words. PMRC. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? How are you going to do that? How are you going to regulate that? Hey, I found it and shared it. Is that illegal for me to do? There's a lot of practical questions that I have. In this regard. So, I mean, it should definitely be approached and looked at, no question. But it's going to be difficult to regulate.
If AI is utilized in either the creation of the script or the actual voicing of an ad, should that be disclosed to the people? And that includes scripting. I can see some of these young campaign staffers, writing speeches through the chat GPT.
Well, I mean, we could do this right now. I mean, why wouldn't we?
So they write their papers for college.
Hey, let's ask chat, AI, what did Donald Trump say today in regards to, say, I don't know, New York court cases, and have that come up, and then use an AI voiceover to put that voice to those words. I mean, I would imagine we can probably get close to doing something like that right now, dude. So I think
question? Fancy Brian came close a couple times of his own volition, just stringing the Trump clips together.
No, well, the other side then. Now, if I do this as a voiceover talent, if I just happen to have one of those skills, Saturday Night Live,
Rich Little,
some of those folks do really good at impersonating other people's. Is that also a thing? I mean, is that if it's satire, of course, you can get away with it. If you're claiming that these are words by a public official, well, can you put lies in their mouth? I mean, Trump's been putting lies into people's mouths all the time. So, there's a lot, man. It's really complex. It's really interesting, but I think in many ways we're obviously already right here, dude. I mean, we could literally do segments on what did AI create for Trump today.
In the last elective cycle, there was a Ron Johnson impersonator that occasionally appeared on the civic media airwaves, but very little or no effort to actually sound like Ron, just say really dumb things. Like Ron might say them.
Right.
I still found it quite hilarious on many occasions. 844-967-2789. I got the wrong screen up, so I can't get to him.
I'll get to him, man. Let's do callers. Be patient. Starting with you, Wisco Paul. Happy Friday, man. What do you got for us?
Hey, Paul.
Hey, good afternoon, Devils. First thing off, Crute, is Wisconsin going to take down Indiana?
Oh, hell yeah. We don't even need a running back to beat Indiana, man. They're like 2-9. We're going to beat Indiana.
Good. That's totally awesome.
I'm more concerned about like Nebraska and Minnesota later in the season, but I think the Badgers could end 9-3 and still have a really good bowl game, and perhaps even strangely win the West of the Big Ten. It's not out of the question at this point, Paul.
I'm on board with that, Crute. That's cool. Hey, it's really a toss-up on grievances. You got Coward Voss, but I think I have to go with the Speaker of the House, because it seems to me it's totally controlled by Trump, and that in itself is very, very scary.
That's
you could
not
end
fair,
up with a
Paul. They have
government-
bad ideas of their own volition.
Yeah, separate,
I'm not
separate
gonna-
branch of government,
I
Paul.
can't argue that. I can't argue that. But it's still kind of spooky because you could shut the government down, and that is funny though. But so that's my grievance. The Speaker of the House, I think he's totally controlled by Trump. Yeah, and you're correct on that. They have enough of their own bad ideas. And I'll end with Go Badgers, and you boys have a great weekend.
You as well, Paul. Thanks
All
for
right, Paul,
listening.
you too, man. Appreciate it.
And if you want to listen to my beloved Badgers, pregame starts tomorrow at 9, kickoff at 11. Going down to Bloomington, going to kick Indiana's ass. That's my prediction. Badgers playing out across the Civic Media Network, 4 different stations. WFHR 1320 AM in the north central part of the state. WRCE in Richland Center, news from the center, and Badgers. WRJN, our flagship in Racine, Kenosha, that's 1400 AM. You can listen on the radio tomorrow, Dom, 1400 AM. And up in the Northwoods, the Big Q 98.3 FM. Badgers, Badgers, Badgers. And you can stream them. Listen to the Civic Media Badgers. That's what I always do. Come back. Hour 2. Your grievances. 844-967-2789.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Friday edition, a happy hour, and nothing but you bitching. Your grievances this entire hour, and a few of ours, maybe. We might throw a few in them. But just so the people had the number, for those hopping in the car, done with work, you survived. We're
Well
not
done.
quite there yet.
Good job,
We'll
everybody.
join you soon. 844-967-2789. Air your grievances here. But, Dom, I thought we might start this hour by helping to distill why it is the Democratic Party makes it so damn difficult to win elections. There's an article over at Politico. Their prophecy of an enduring Democratic rule fell apart. They blame college grads. It's the college kids' fault that the Democrats could lose, Dom. So
What?
That's the premise. Yeah.
I don't know. What?
Here is the subheadline at the Politico. Can Democrats overcome their college campus branding and reclaim the working class? Because this will be bemoaning the fact that the Democratic Party is losing labor, losing the blue collar. Could the future of our republic really be riding on the fact that so many people think elite college students are totally annoying? Outrages over student activists excusing Hamas have driven the news since the attacks on Israel. But the author here, Michael Schaefer, senior editor at the Politico, writes, but I found myself thinking about more prosaic 21st century campus headlines about safe spaces or heckled speakers or other Fox News staples while reading an advance copy of a big book about a less deadly crisis, the travails of the Democratic Party. The book, Where Have All the Democrats Gone?, comes from a somewhat surprising pair of writers, John Judas and Roy Texaquera. I hope I got that right. Yes, that's the same duo that became Beltway famous 20 years ago for predicting a new era of Democratic triumph based in large part on the party's dominance among the college students. The college kids, Dom. Once upon a time, Judas and Texaquera, the emerging Democratic majority, was hailed as having foreseen the rising minority in college grad demographic combo that powered Barack Obama's win. But the political realignment that the Democratic Beltway insiders simplistically took as a matter of faith never happened. And now the pair are back with a book grappling with what went wrong. It's a nuanced argument, but here's the short version. The progressive, college-educated culture embodied by one element of that coalition is driving away everybody else. It's an answer, I think, that says as much about the specific makeup of the Washington political prose as it does about the broad demographic trends that undergirded the initial rosy predictions. What happened? ? In Judas and Texarkana's account, the 21st Century Party underdelivered on populist economics for working class voters. Now, Dom, I have echoed that sentiment for a while, and that in part is why Bernie Sanders was so appealing to me. Even though I found him to be quite progressive, this democratic socialist, I never heard of that. So many of the ideas he put forth initially seemed like, wow, that's so far out there. Until they were put under scrutiny and you realize, damn, that's pretty good. What's the cost on that? Oh, that's relatively cheap compared to most of our national expenditures on, let's say, warfare. But I read on. Again, back to the author talking about what happened. Where'd all the Democrats go? But at the same time, it over-indexed for the cultural style that has jumped from campuses into the sort of professions where expensively degreed folks predominate. Folks like you, Dom, radio pros, stuff like that, including the constellation of Washington organizations, businesses, and advocacy groups that help define a party's public image. The result, they say, is a party increasingly identified with the professional class and increasingly shunned by blue-collar voters it used to represent. Most ominously, in the past couple of election cycles, Democratic margins have softened amongst black and brown blue-collar voters, too. And here's one statement, Dom, and then I'd like to get your opinion. Because the labor movement is so weak now, and the working class influences in the Democratic Party are so weak now, and because the base of the Democratic Party is, in literal numerical terms, more steered towards white, college-educated, and politically liberal people, it's just basically the campus culture has become the party as a whole, according to Texarkana. And that obviously is not a great way to attract working class voters. And surprise, surprise, it hasn't been good for it. So if I understand the argument being made by these authors and the author of this piece at Politico, it's the damn college kids looking for their safe spaces and these different sort of liberal agendas that have sort of become the Democratic Party agenda. But it's off-putting to the, working class, blue collar, especially whites here in the upper Midwest, that used to be the base of the Democratic Party. So, Dom, I ask you,
come on,
why is it the next generation's fault? These kids,
these kids these days, man, it's
kids
all
today.
Kids today. These millennials, I don't even know what generation we're on. Those young kids. I don't know if I agree with the premise. I don't know that a quote unquote blue collar working class person on the farm or in the factory is really diving into safe spaces in college argument with the righties that are on college. I just don't know that that'd be the case. I think, just anecdotally, folks that I've run into over the last, 10, 12 years, 13 years doing this show with you, I don't know. Most seem like working people to me, man. You got to get up and go do a job. If you got to get up, punch a clock or whatever the case is, go do your job and get home. Those are working folks, man. Now, certainly farming is hard. So manufacturing stuff is hard. Some of that labor work is certainly very difficult. And there's short time frames in which people can, work in those industries and make that money before, bodies break down and or the industry passes and technology passes them by. So I don't know that I would think that what goes on a college campus between 19 and 20-year-olds is really going to impact a laborer working second shift in their 30s and 40s. I just don't know that that's a relatable experience or has any influence on that laborer's quote unquote voting.
Well, okay, then why aren't they voting with the Democrats? If it's not having any impact, if it's not off-putting to this electorate,
I would say because they've
working class or working class
traditionally underperformed because we have the corporate Dems that you talked about, the Bernie
not
Sanders
traditionally
and the populism and the populism, man. But I would also say that as we talked about it with our pal the other day, Joe Biden walked the picket line, man. I mean, we have
talking about Rick Smith, our pal
Smith,
from
yes.
Talk Radio.
Joe Biden walked the picket line. No president's done that, right? We have the labor in strikes in Detroit, very successful. Labor as far organized labor, as far as I look at this, has been becoming more popular over the last 10 years, not less. So I don't know, and generally, and certainly not to say that all labor folks are going to go vote for Joe Biden. I think Bernie Sanders has a good populist message. I thought, $15 minimum wages, for example, Medicare for all. I think these are things that a lot of working people, call it anybody working, making less than $200,000 a year, would be down for, man. I mean, the cost of healthcare is through the roof. We get fleeced and pilfered every time we turn around, man. So I don't know that I buy the premise. I think the message has to be there, and certainly performances has to be there. Because I don't know how if you're talking about, everyday average working people are going to look at what the Republicans are doing right now in Congress, or what Donald Trump has been proposing is going to make their lives better. I mean, other than giving justification to hate the right people that they hate, I don't know what that message is. It's certainly not fiscal responsibility. Donald Trump had more debt to this country than any president ever. It's certainly not family values. I mean, come on, check the box, look down the list. So whatever traditional messaging or whatever people traditionally bought from the Republican Party is not, I don't think, is going to sell to the mega party. I just don't see that, man.
Well, first and foremost, I think you make a false assumption, and perhaps there's a revitalization of the union movement since the pandemic, but the unions have been on a terrible decline, since, like the 1970s now. Graphics show me that union households in 1983 were 20%, one in all five households. Now it's 10% in 2022. And that's a plateau number. That is better than the trajectory that unions have been on. And certainly here in the state of Wisconsin, Dom, we've seen Scott Walker decimate the unions. First, it was the public sector, then it was right to work, right? I mean, talked just the other day about the nurses and the crisis they have at University of Wisconsin Hospital because they can't unionize. They have no collective bargaining power over their own workforce. Well, it's having decimating effects, certainly in our backyard. I think the loss of manufacturing work has certainly decimated many towns across the upper Midwest, the Rust Belt, right? But I don't see what it is. And the greater argument being made here, I think, by this columnist at the Politico is, but what argument are the Democrats making? Maybe Joe Biden walked on the picket line, but that's the first time it's ever happened, Don. And for a long time, we have seen the Democratic Party bleeding union labor and bleeding working class. And what do we hear? We hear guys like Ted Cruz and Donald Trump claiming the Republican Party is the party of the workers. And you can say, well, people are smarter than that. But are they? Are they? What pain has the Republican Party in the state of Wisconsin felt for decimating the unions here in the state of Wisconsin? What retribution has been served upon them? Zero, zip, none. If anything, they made themselves more electable by getting rid of the foot soldiers of the Democratic Party. Come back. More Devil's Advocates. Your Friday grievances, they're aired here if you call 844-967-2789.
60% of the time, they're right every time. The Devil's Advocates.
For listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, Friday airing the grievances 844-967-2789.
Dom, lots of chastisement coming from the text line. People say, Crudy, don't blame the progressives. Well, I'd like to think I'm pretty damn progressive. The question is, how do you define progressive? What are the issues of your progressivism, I guess?
Well, the question is, these authors that blame college Dems for
it's not
whatever ails
college Dems.
The Democrats today? Well, I'm not sure then. Tell me.
It is the notion. It's identity politics, Dom. Read a little beyond what's written on the page. Infer it's identity politics that they're bemoaning. It's the fact that the Democratic Party, if you check a box, you're welcome here. You fit in our tent. But if you're just a white working class stiff that goes down to the factory every day and you don't check their box, they don't necessarily have a place for you. Or at least it is my strong impression, and I think the impression of the authors, that is the problem. The Democratic Party has become the most liberal, at least in public-facing arguments, and that allows the Fox News to take social wedge issues and beat us over the head with it. When really, if the Democrats were out there talking about keeping the government open and keeping people in childcare, in healthcare,
I mean, I think
issues.
They're saying those things, man.
Who is saying those things? Where am I hearing those messages from the current Democratic Party?
Go to any Democratic.
I listen close.
All right, are you seeing the Twitter feeds? I mean, I don't know how you get your information, Crudy. Do you want people like coming down to you on your doorstep telling you this is what they think? I mean, the politicians put these things out all the time, dude. All the time.
Really? Really? Because I'm in the talk radio politics business, and I don't hear that message overwhelming me.
Chuck Schumer's Twitter feed.
I get
what exactly?
I got to get on Chuck Schumer's Twitter feed to find out what the Democrats stand for.
What do you want?
I want every Democrat. I'll answer the question. How do you want it
delivered to you, man? This is for real, man. Come on.
Not through interruption and yelling at me. I would like to have an opportunity to say, you want to deliver it? Do so consistently. Go out there on the bully pulpit. We got a governor. He could be on the air each and every day talking about economic kitchen table issues to the state of Wisconsin. He could be bragging about the bounce back grants that he was masterful in his economic development for small business in the state of Wisconsin. We could hear about the positive things happening in the state, but I don't. All I hear is battles over DEI on campus, and we can't fund the universities. We're sitting on a $7 million surplus, but somehow Republicans have made this the issue du jour because we let them, because we're not talking about issues that affect most Wisconsinites. Yeah, is DEI important to the college kids? Yeah, it absolutely should be. Is diversity important in this life? Yes. But is it how you lead your campaign? I think when the Democratic Party does, they do so at the expense of white and blue-collar, white working class and blue-collar voters. And I think that's played out in the small margins in the fact that Donald Trump was able to overturn the blue wall that Wisconsin used to be. And it could happen again very quickly,
and he said,
very readily.
You elect me, this plant will never leave. And the plant leaves. I mean, the guy's got a record. And I think you, unfortunately, Crudy, I think you bring a grievance to this discussion. So Evers isn't on the radio doing it how you want him to do it every day.
He's not the only leader of the party.
All right, now you're going to talk about interrupting me, dude? So he's not doing it the way that you want him to do it, and somehow that is a reflection upon how Democrats in colleges are affecting the lack of blue-collar folks supporting the Dems. I don't see this the throughput there, Crudy. And if you look at what the Republicans have said and what they have done and how they've delivered, if you want to look at the facts, I would say that objectively, anybody in those positions, and if you're to classify people in a work environment to see what the Republicans have done for them or what the Democratic Party has done for them, and put it out and do your SWOT analysis, dude, there's no way that you're going to say, well, I'm going Republican.
But yet it happens.
Of course
it happened in the midterms. It happens in every freaking elective cycle. We come down to a coin flip in the state of Wisconsin. We're going to do so again next year, probably. because it's
Yeah, and
always
it's not DEI
always about the
on the college
economy.
campus. When you bring that kind of stuff up, you're agreeing with the Republicans' culture war BS, man. That's not the issue. There's greater issues. How about the racism which is behind their anti-DEI, man? You want to talk about those things?
You think
These
I
things
failed to bring those
are
things
very
up?
specific. Those are the problems. But you're talking about it in terms of how the Republicans are shoveling it to you.
No, I'm talking about it in terms of how the Democratic Party is embracing identity politics at the expense of a broad tent where everyone feels included, including the working class, and they have not felt included by this Democratic Party, and we see the results in electoral outcomes. Let's hear from others. 844-967-2789. Chris from Rice Lake, a new name. Welcome, Chris. You're at the top of the list.
Hi, Chris.
Hello?
Yeah,
Hey,
Chris,
Chris,
welcome
you're
to
on
the
the
show.
air.
What do you got for us?
Yeah, I don't really have a grievance, but I just want to add to your conversation a little bit. The Republican Party has been browbeating this, the working class people and splitting the Democratic Party in half. It's the East and the West Coast Democrats against the working Democrats in the Midwest. And when there was a vacuum that was created, the Republicans swooped in and they scooped up all the working people saying, you know what, we're here for you. We believe in, we want you to believe that we are your, we're here for you. Don't worry about the East Coast. Don't worry about the West Coast. All them rich people care about is themselves and, their agendas. They don't care about you. And that's the problem with the Democratic Party. It doesn't matter what they say about, oh, you know what, we're doing this for the economy and we're doing that for the economy. They don't care. They don't care about that anymore. They care about these working people care about their economy. They don't care about DEI. They don't care about LGBTQ. They care about them. And the only ones that are addressing what they care about are the Republicans. And I'm sorry to say, I'm a huge Democrat, but that's the truth. It started before Scott Walker. It started before the popcorn guy. I mean, this has been going on for years and years and years, and now it's going to be so hard to get the Democrats back in line. I mean, that's why we have all these screwy elections. It really is.
I think you're speaking truth, Chris. Your truth, certainly. I think it is a truth. And I think the kitchen table issues, how's my family doing? That affects people. It affects them in Rice Lake, I suspect. Where are you listening to us today, Chris, if I may ask? How are you listening to us?
Online. On your app, I should say.
Well, we got some fine radio stations in your neck of the woods. We're trying to have conversations with your part of the state. Thanks for joining ours today. Your grievances, they're welcome here. We're the devil's advocates. And sometimes we argue. Doesn't mean we don't love each other.
Love you, man.
Just means Dom's often wrong, and sometimes I got to argue with him. But come back. You can make your case right here on Devil's Advocates Radio Show. That's how we do it. Little bitching, some grievances. Friday. It's a happier happy hour. We're rolling through it. Your phone calls are next. 844-967-2789.
The devil's advocates may not agree on much, but funny is funny.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Friday edition, airing of the grievances in the happier happy hour. We always encourage your participation. And I got a few people fired up. They disagree with me, although there are a smattering disagreeing with you as well, Dom. The argument made by a political columnist and a couple of authors he interviewed, the prophecy of enduring Democratic rule fell apart. They blame college grads. And what they are saying is effectively the Democratic Party has become a party of identity grievance, or at least that's how they're being campaigned against. And it's with some effect because they've lost the working class voter. Now, there are some that disagree with you, Dom. There are a lot that disagree with me, but I'm going to start with one that disagrees with you. Yes, blame them. Ha, ha, ha. And Dom, you are the exact problem. Why the Dems are not taking off as much as they should. It's thinking like yours.
Well, yeah.
And then there are many that say,
I mean, come on. I mean, more detail than that, man. Thinking like mine. What thinking?
That this is all about all these ancillary issues, not the economy.
Well, I mean, the economy stupid has been a thing for a long time. I mean, come on. Real quick, from the political, and you get back to I just want to throw this out there because I didn't know, and now I know. I want to share with you. The writers in this political piece, bred in the old left that venerated labor unions and the New Deal, have some personal experience with a disconnect they refer to. A longtime staple of the Liberal Center for American Progress, Teixeira, 71 years old, left last year to take a perch at the American Enterprise Institute, a bastion of pro-market conservatism. It's an odd place for someone with a social democratic take on the economy, but a move he said he made because he couldn't stand the cultural climate of liberal think tanks. Judas, 82, the author's colleague, a decade ago at the New Republic, has written extensively on nationalism in recent years, arguing it's an essential component in winning support for progressive economic schemes. Quote, I had professors telling me they would assign it to their class and the kids wouldn't read it because they identify it with Trump, unquote. Those are the authors. So maybe lefties, now older, leaning little righties is kind of my takeaway from that. So again, is there more that could be done? Of course there is, man. And I've voted for Republicans. I voted for libertarians. And I more recently, I voted for the Democrats because I'm anti-fascist more than anything. You know what I mean? And what I've seen from the Republican Party and the libertarians, at least some of their Twitter feeds of late, are not very pro-democratic to me. So that's where I'm at.
They'd sell your democracy down the river for a tax cut. And a lot of people only care about their own families. We've talked about this. If it doesn't affect them, it doesn't affect them, right? But if the Republican Party says, we're for you, you working class Joes and Janets, you Joe Sixpacks, we're your party. And the Democrats seemingly don't, guess what? If I claim I'm the pro-weed candidate, then I become the pro-weed candidate because I say I am. The Republicans literally, by just saying, we're for you, working people, they have made huge inroads in the working class, not because they've earned it, not through policy. Rational thought does not factor in here. I totally agree with you, Dom, but it still has effect. I don't want to pre-debate her, but here's a friend of ours, Chris from Sun Prairie. It's been too long. I think I know where you're going. I see you trashing me on text line. Chris, welcome back to the show. What do you got for us?
Hi, Chris.
Hi. Well, I don't know that I really agree on either end of that. I just think this is kind of the latest thing to blame. I think that if the party has anybody to blame, maybe it's themselves. Because, we had Build Back Better. I mean, I supported Biden even after I was a Bernie delegate and a Bernie supporter for the second time around. But I supported Biden, and I think I've liked a lot of what Joe Biden has done. And I was very happy when I saw the student loan forgiveness. I was very happy when I looked at Build Back Better. Was very disappointed when the student loan forgiveness was pulled back. And then also when none of the real progressive part of Build Back Better went through. I was really disappointed in that. So none of the real progressive policies have actually made it through. So that's, if anybody's talking about anything progressive, look at the stuff that was left on the floor, and that's where the progressive stuff is. So I'm real disappointed in that part. But I still support President Biden, except for right now I'm having a very difficult time with Gaza and Israel. I do understand, and I have a lot of Jewish friends, and I really feel for what happened to the Jewish people. I do believe they have a right to defend themselves, but defending yourself and going in and just carpet bombing people are very different things. And I really feel for the people as well in Gaza. So I really have a problem. I think the president needs to broker a peace if he can, and we need to help those people. But back to the Democratic Party, my concern is people won't show up to vote. That's my concern. It's not that people just might not. And not just for Biden. I worry about Tammy Baldwin because of the F-35s. I think that some people are tone deaf when it comes to their base supporters. And I do think that, there are people that are their base supporters that are being ignored and not listened to.
Chris, you were a Bernie Sanders supporter, as you've acknowledged. And
yes,
as I recall, the vast majority of Bernie's agenda was economic populism. It was, forgive student loan debt, make 2-year or 4-year college free state schools, Medicare for all. And we can argue around the fringes about how we accomplish these things and whether or not they're affordable. And I think many of them could be, as we actually scrutinize the policy positions of Bernie Sanders. But it was all about kitchen table issues. It was all about the economy, stupid. And I found that very refreshing. These were the things that affected so many of the different people I talk to each and every day. Everybody's affected by the economy. And Chris, my fear is if the economy takes a little turn for the South, I mean, we got interest rates that are going to make buying houses very, very difficult. People are going to get stuck in their houses for a while because interest rates are cresting at 7 and 8%, and they used to be 2%. Well, cheap money policy is over, Chris.
But that's not a Democratic Party issue, man. That's the Fed, dude. I mean,
it's a Democratic Party issue when we get stuck with the recession and Joe Biden's got the headwinds going into an election year. That's my fear.
What the Fed is trying to do is slow the economy down, man. The Fed wants unemployment to go up. That's how this math works.
Chris, please do.
Can I just say something? Yeah, well, if the economy gets bad, there are people that the economy has never gotten better for. Right. They're the people that are homeless right now. They're the people that can't feed their children. They're the people that have been through 3, 4, 5 layoffs that never got over it. They're still carrying bills. The economy didn't get better for a lot of people. So when people say no one's being hurt, they don't truly understand what's happening at the level of real working class people. A lot of people really took great losses, and the economy doesn't make up for those.
And how do you think we speak to those people? And I guess I'm saying, as a Democratic Party, if I was running for president, if I was Joe Biden or I'm Tammy Baldwin, how should I speak to those people in your opinion, Chris?
In my opinion, they can ask us what they can do to help us. I lost my job in 2009. And I have things that I have an adult disabled daughter. There are needs. We need housing for people that are adults that are disabled that get Social Security checks that can then take care of their needs for a month. We have needs out here for people. I can take care of myself, but we have people that cannot. And we have needs out here. And this is what should be first on the table, not people that are getting their second, third, fourth houses and these companies that are making billions of dollars. And I have to say, it's really difficult to watch our senators and Congress members go into the Congress with like normal net worths and come out billionaires or millionaires or, they're just very, very wealthy. So I have to say we got to get the money out of politics, and we need public servants back in. If you want to go make money in a big corporation, go do that, and let people that will regulate you do their job in Congress. We need.
Sorry to cut you short, Chris. We got
regulation. Lost me there. No, just kidding, Chris. Thank you always for your insight, Chris. I love hearing from you, sister.
As much as I respect Chris, here's another voice I respect very much. Bill Dunn, my friend, says, please stop blaming the Democratic Party for things it has little control of. Blame the mainstream media, which doesn't pursue stories that aren't sexy, i.e. conflict-driven. The Republicans have also have a fallback position of distrust in government and hatred of taxes. According to Bill, the Dems should counteract that to the extent they can. And then he offers a great source here, he says, and I believe him, governmentisgood.com. Governmentisgood.com.
Well, you get the government you get. I mean, Donald Trump was the head of the executive branch. You know what? Was that good government? I would challenge that. The elections do matter. The people do matter. And Chris, to talk about some of those folks you identified, and my concern is that with the headwinds and the challenges and everything that they have to deal with, are they able to get out and go and vote, to engage? I mean, it's almost a privilege, and it's a terrible thing to say. It's almost a privilege to be engaged to the degree that we're able to do so. I mean, if you're out there, working 2 or 3 jobs, trying to, pay the rent and do that, are you going to take time out to go and vote or even take time out to do a little research and read and know about the issues that may or may not help the situation that you may be in and your local government and your municipal and your state government? I just, those are challenges that I think we need to overcome in some way.
Tom from Grafton, you're next. Welcome, Tom. What do you got for us?
Hey, Tom.
Hi. At this point, I have to agree with Crute. I think on this one, he's right. And I think, too, that the common person, especially the white person, what is it, about 80% in this state?
More than that.
We're
about 91%.
Responsible for everybody's problems. And I'm not in charge of people. I don't put people down and stuff like that. And a lot of my working people who I work with, are not management and have nothing to say as to why people are in the spots they're in. But I would say that we're not we're looked down upon because I think we're blamed falsely for a lot of the problems in society. And we also see that the Democratic Party focuses on minorities, which is fine, and gays and stuff like that, and they need attention too. But you never hear the common person being uplifted. The white person in particular, and you look at media and stuff like that, and you just most of the commercials on radio and TV and stuff like that, there's not many white people in them anymore, especially for white males. But I think it's important that the media, like you are here now to tell the truth of what's actually happening, and I'm so glad you're on the air.
Well, Tom, appreciate you listening. I don't think it's. Let's just keep moving. I've expressed many of my opinions.
We got a lot of callers. Let's go. Yeah, thank you.
967-2789. Let's hear from Kelly from Madison next. Welcome, Kelly. What do you got for us?
All right, Kelly.
Hi, guys. Oh, Crute, I think you are so on the money. And I would encourage.
Are you sure? Because I was doubting myself there for a minute.
No. In fact, just last night, if you haven't heard of the station Tubi, please go on there and watch the documentary Hillbilly. And it speaks to everything you are talking about. And it is a documentary from a gal who grew up in coal country. And it was done in 2016. And it tells exactly why Trump was elected. These were former Democrats, and they were all ignored. And he went in there and gave them hopes and dreams, and now they're all wearing the hats, and they think that he's the hero. And so we've got to appeal to these people. Everybody, there's little Appalachians all over this country, as it points out. We have them all over in Wisconsin.
Kelly, I know. I've driven all around the state, and we'd like to think we got radio signals touching most of the parts in a good way. You know, a good way. Handshake. More devil's advocates on the other side. Final segment for your grievances. 844-96-PARTY.
The Devil's Advocates, rock and roll political commentary in a top 40 world.
And welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show, our last segment of the day. If you got something to say, hit us up right now at 844-967-2789.
And a short promotion for the Democratic Party of Walworth County. Crute will be speaking at the fundraiser tomorrow night in Delavan. I believe that's at the Lake Lawn Resort, the cocktail hour 5 to 7. Crute, I believe I go near the front, but the speakers that come after me, I'm just the warm-up act, you know, like they do it at the comedy clubs. The bad comedian goes first, and then the headliners. Well, Crute will warm them up for the real stars of the evening. They include Greta Neubauer, the Assembly Minority Leader, Melissa Agard, Greta's in the Assembly. Melissa Agard is the Senate Minority Leader. Too many minority leaders at the party.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah Godlewski, the Secretary of the great state of Wisconsin. They are the headliners. I'm just the undercard. But join us all, a little fundraiser on behalf of the Walworth County Democratic Party. And anything Crute says tonight is not a reflection on the fine work those people are doing and the party they're throwing tomorrow night. I'll see you there.
I look forward to hearing how Greta, Sarah, and Melissa, their response to you know, the fact that they don't want to reach out to the working folks enough. Because that's the real deal, man. I mean, we're not talking esoteric kind of thing. We're talking about, people that you're going to be on stage with tomorrow. What we're saying is that they don't go out and talk to working folks enough. I just don't know if I buy that, man. I don't know if I buy that. 844-967-2789. Dick from Madison, Europe. Welcome, Dick. What do you got for us?
Hey, Dick.
Well, being that I'm one of the longer in the tooth listeners at 68 years old, I've seen this before, and I understand. Here's what it is. Way back when Reagan was elected, supposed Reagan Democrats, you guys don't remember that, I'm sure. You're too
Come on,
young.
man. What, you think I'm 12 here? I remember.
Well,
I was 10
okay,
when I got elected.
here's where I'm going with that. I understand all of this about working class people and this, that, and the other thing. And you're deluged. You're busy just getting by day to day, and they depend on low information voters. And if the only information you're getting is from this present media, no wonder this is happening. I mean, come on.
Oh, now it's
Things
the
are not-
internet, Dick. You can get it mainlined right to your brain, dude.
Yeah, if you got
I know,
a
but most
high-speed
people do
internet
not do
connection.
that. Most people don't do that. It's a proven fact. They just go about their daily life. Most people are not like you two, or like, I've been a geek like this since the beginning of time as far as paying attention to politics, but most people don't. And so, you know, Reagan fooled everybody 43 years ago with trickle down, and here you go again. I mean, it doesn't
So what's the
surprise
fix,
me
Dick?
because
What's the fix? What's the fix?
well, the fix would be an electorate that paid a little more attention. I mean, the Democrats got to go out there and find a way of just nonstop. You know, what is it in advertising? Just keep beating the drum, what we've done and what we're continuing to do, and just keep it up nonstop. Otherwise, I mean, look at right here in Madison, this road project on Atwood Avenue. A lot of that was federal money. Part of what, and nobody, the average person doesn't know.
Damn road construction.
Yeah, darn those
orange barrel fatigue.
Dick, appreciate your call. We got lots of people holding. Want to keep moving down the list. 844-967-2789. I, again, will defer my opinion for now. Chris from Middleton, you're next. Welcome to the show. What do you got for us?
Hi, Chris.
Thank you. First time caller, a little nervous here, but look, I'm a Democrat. I totally agree that there's been too much corporate influence probably in the Democratic Party, and I liked how Bernie talked about, you know, economic issues, and I agree we need more of that. But I don't think we can also afford to shy away from the identity politics. I think, in fact, we got to lean into the identity politics also and not be shy about it. You know, I think in Wisconsin, there's still a lot of racism in Wisconsin, and most people in Wisconsin, they would treat a person in front of them, black or white, just the same. But there's this concept that in their minds that the Democrats is going to give away their tax money to the black community. And I think unless we start engaging that and talking about that, we kind of have this void we can't fill. Trump, he didn't have any policies really for the working guy, but people voted for him because he promised to keep things white in America, keep the white man's role where it's been. And that in some ways appealed to people, reassured them the world wouldn't change. But the world needs to change. Unless we engage people directly about that, I don't know if we're ever going to get through this.
Chris, well said.
Wow, great call.
Thoughtful.
Man. Appreciate it. Right on point.
If you'd like to meet me in person, I'll be at Lakeview Park in Middleton next Sunday night doing a little thing for the Middleton Democratic Party. Anything Crute said tonight is not a reflection on the Middleton Democratic Party either. I have many friends in the Democratic Party. They occasionally invite me down to do some speeches.
Maybe not anymore.
And on the 14th, Dom, that's a Tuesday, I'll be down in Waukesha, but that'll be with the Blue Skies Waukesha crew. I haven't said anything terrible about them today. They're nice people. They're friends of ours. Let's sneak a few more in here. Terry from the Northwoods. What do you got for us, Terry?
Hey, Terry.
Hi, guys. Shout out to Dick. He nailed it again, as always. But here's what I got for you guys. Just happened to bump into this article today. Per capita income, every state. I'm just going to talk about Minnesota. They're at 63,640, I believe I saw. Wisconsin, let me find it here. Come on. 56,120.
About $7
So
grand less per year. That's less, 10%, more than 10% less than our neighbors across the river.
Right. And you know, Crute, they trended blue in 2010, you know, with Mark Dayton and the legislature. What I don't have to say what we did. So that's what I got.
We know, Terry. We know.
Alexandria, Minnesota is a place north of the cities. My in-laws used to live there for a period of time, and there was an article way back in 2012. I'll end with this thought today. I think it was called A Jagged Little Pill. They were talking about the fact as these rural areas became more dependent upon the government, they turned more red. And the citizens of those areas actually resented the government because they were unable to provide for their families in the way they always had. So these economic issues, they affect Minnesota, they affect Wisconsin. But I would point out the state of Minnesota incarcerates less than half as many people as the state of Wisconsin and invests less than half as much in imprisoning their citizens, because we got more criminals here, apparently. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Nick Ramos. Thank you, Al Robinson. Stick around. Anya covering for Maggie Dawn.